Test 1 2. Yo, how can my mic be low like that? Are you okay? Wait a minute. I see something. You took your sweet time. Yo, talking voice. There we go. That seems like what we expect. But when we get animated, it's gonna be rah 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 all red. And we got to check over here. Don't you dare. Yo, alright, no crashing. That's good so far. While we're at, let's just send it out to Twitch as well. See what happens. Could all end up crashing, but hey. Well, we got the rules on. Okay. So before we start the real stream, I'm going to be trying Tekken for the first time in years. Sup, Lord? I don't know about this whole truth being revealed thing you're talking about. And I question the idea of free will as well. I'm a bit dubious about it. So let's see what we can do quickly. Sound check. Okay. I wonder if this game's going to be any good. Or it's going to be like one of those games that I just temporarily get into and then just forget about forever. That'd be a shame, wouldn't it? What I can tell you though is in a way I'm paying for like all the extra characters and stuff. As long as they got Kazuya, maybe Huang, Huaring. Maybe I should have tested that. Wow, that was pretty damn quick. Alright, so quick test. Hello. Alright, yeah, there's audio. Alright, let's give this a shot, man. I've never played this yet. Or I haven't played this yet, should I say. I have high hopes. Only problem is it's going to be a steep learning curve, man. Like, to me, Tekken has always been quite button bashy. What's up, Aston? How you doing? And even in the commands, oh, they changed the little menu. That's pretty cool as well. That's the girl with the fox mask. She's got a face. Holy, like, yo, that's crazy. Hey, thanks for the gifts, bro. Appreciate you. God has an unchanging nature. He cannot be all loving if he forced himself upon us, right? God be forcing himself on people without consent in so many ways, bro. At least according to like religious versions of God. Cool. Not really a cool story, but today while I was out running errands, right, I got approached by at least 4 different people, all of them black, trying to invite me to church, pass me leaflets. Eventually, I ended up talking to one guy for like, what do you mean? That's my name, bro. I bet my YouTube channel will get banned. But ended up having a bloody religious debate in the middle of the street. Like, guy actually drew me into it. Like, you son of a... It's like this internet stuff seems to be following me in real life now. It's a bit scary. Okay. Oh no! Did I just give away some like private information? I didn't mean to show you that, but I don't know. It's not like I could do anything about it anyways. You can now randomize which side you play on with side selection. Oh, it's gonna be TMI. Man like Bob. Yeah, it's Kunimitsu. Kunimitsu. Alright, we'll give this a quick once over. And then story, The Dark Awakens. Might be down for that. Let's just check this first. They ain't got a stream mode. Well, they better not go heavy on the copyright music then. It's like it's almost like, oh, there we go, copyrights. Yeah. It's almost like a modern standard. They want their players. They want people to stream their games. They gotta have some service. Heavy ass option menu. That's never good. Enjoy battling. Yeah, I'll read it in my own time. Can be toggled off. Commands for returns. Nah, sounds like cheating. It sounds like modern on Street Fighter. I don't want that. Learn about the Mishima saga up until Tekken 7 with the digest movies. Would you like the gallery for story mode? That might trigger copyright. So let's put no. Sup, Floof. I haven't changed the topic in months, maybe so. I enjoy talking about it. I learn a lot. What would you prefer to talk about? Let's get a sound check done. Yo. Game's kind of loud, isn't it? The Rebel Army. Yggdrasil. I hear sound. Yo. 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 Oh, that delay's not good. No, that's Lee. Yeah, I'm doing a sound check. Is the echo gone now? Can you hear clear? Cool. What, is Jin one of the good guys now? What is this? Alright, folks. May have to restart the live, but I'm just gonna let this play out for now, and we'll be back on Elden Ring as always. But the thing is, Lord have mercy, everything you know about God is coming from a man, right? It's coming from a specific school of thought or religion. No one has, like, as far as I'm aware, no one has direct experiential data for God. People claim to have personal private experiences of God, but no, like, real, God told me to tell you this and actually be able to support that happened. Kazuya is such a sick character, man. Don't you mean dad, bro? That's your dad, bro. Like, where's the respect? Why would this be an ignorant take? I think the inverse is ignorant. No sound. What in the world? Yo. Oh, snap. Wait, what it got me being Jin? Oh, I tried to do Street Fighter moves. Oh, I want to be Kazuya, bro. Right, I'm gonna have to sit back because this is already smashing my eyes to bits. I am not prepared for Tekken life. Not about this life, bro. It's gonna be a very steep learning curve. Alright. Why are those all completely unassigned? That's way too many things that are unassigned. What's the basics? I hate Tekken combos. Look at that. That looks like a mess. I'm never going to play this. What? How did I pull that off then? I want to be Kazuya, bro. That's my character. I'm a big boy. Got my big boy pants on. Okay. Whoa, what was that? I don't want to be Jin, bro. I've never liked playing as Jin, like since back in the day. Slap Centaur, how you doing? I'm gonna put the game to what we. Ooh, what's this? Huh? Was this a new round? Nice, that was a nice little punch there. Ooh, that's definitely accidental. Alright, specialty. What? Oh no, that's cheating. Alright, take that, whatever that is, take that off. The juggle in Tekken has always been terrible as well. Good God. Meh. Too much screen shake as well. Nah, Jin's never been the guy, bro. Kazuya has always been the guy from that family. Blood clot. What a top that was. Oh my gosh. Right. I think what I'm gonna have to do is play this offline and figure out the buttons and stuff, and then we can stream while playing it. It's gonna be a lot to take in. Yeah, bro's transforming. How can he just okay. That's what I mean about Tekken being button bashy. I'm literally just pressing anything. I was trying to do exactly what he just did there. Remember, it's Jin. Ooh, what's that? What's up, bro? How we doing? You can call in, by the way. I will make it the show more accessible in a minute. I just want to give this game a try. It's not the easiest game to talk through whilst playing. Yeah. So I've got a good hypothesis. I think there's more significant evidence of humans inventing gods all throughout history than evidence of gods existing independently of humans. For us to even understand God, we have to invent the concept of it. We haven't actually got evidence of it existing. So anything you do actually know about God is based on what I'm saying, the invention of it. But maybe that's not explained well enough. What, anything you think you know about God, put it that way, is entirely dependent on humans. Ah, bro. They still got Kazuya being purple, that's jokes. The Cadbury's devil. What wall was that? Where was there a wall there? It was just an invisible wall. Street Fighter would never. Okay. No, switch that off. I feel like if you was to use that thing, it would just be a straight up cheat. Oh, okay. What was that? It's an unblockable. Bruh. That seemed a bit ridiculous. Can you just do that at will? Oh gosh. It's definitely ain't taken 6 days, boy. Guilty Gear. I don't know if I've played Guilty Gear. Is that also a platform? Might be on Street Fighter a little later. This ain't my style of fighting game. I thought I'd enjoy this as well. I might just like privately, like maybe online battles once I get to play as Kazuya anyways. But at the moment, not really enjoying it. Tino, hang tight 1 sec, yeah? Oh, I can pause. Hello?
Yo, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, bro. How you doing?
I'm good. How you doing, man? What should I call you?
Set, S-E-T.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
Is your name Tino?
Are you willing? What's that? Sorry.
Is your name
Tino's fine.
Tino, yeah? Cool.
Yeah. So yeah, are you willing to discuss the point that you made?
Sure, I wouldn't be here otherwise, would I?
Yeah, because obviously it's a big question. So for me, I guess I'd ask you more questions. So what do you mean by invented?
So to produce something that didn't exist prior.
Okay. And how do you know? Like, what is your standard for saying it didn't exist prior?
Well, I take God to be a concept, an abstract idea, not an actual entity. I think there's a good explanation to how and when we invented the concept of God, and it's based on something called hyperactive agency detection device. It's a cognitive theory coined by a guy called Justin Barrett. So that would have been, from my point of view, the inception of the first types of gods, and then we've evolved our God concepts as we've evolved.
Okay, so what would you describe God as then?
So when I use the word God, I'm using it as a category definer for supernatural entities or deities, major and minor deities. I acknowledge various different concepts of God. So some people might say God is the creator. Some people may say God is all, like pantheists, right? Some people may say God is a major deity, and sometimes he's embodied as a man, like a biblical type of God, right? Yeah. So I just use the word God as a category definer. I let the believer tell me which God they're describing.
Okay, that's good. That's interesting as well. So personally, I would say I'm a pantheist. I would say everything is God, at least an expression of his power. That's as far as I really go into it. I don't believe in any type of morality from him or her, whatever. But I think in that sense, like, existence itself is God. A way that I like to think about it is that when you die, you kind of know that the world's going to continue on existing without you forever. The universe is going to continue on existing, but because you were inside that universe, you were like a kind of like an accidental thing. You don't have to be alive for the universe to continue existing. Like kind of like an accident. So like when you die,
kind of. So you're like kind of saying that we're contingent, basically.
Yeah, definitely.
No, I hear you. But one might argue, right? Of course, this is philosophical. One might argue that nothing is contingent and everything is necessary, and it couldn't be otherwise.
But I would agree with that, and I would say things are necessary because God himself is necessary. So God has to exist. That's why everything
Why do you think
exists. Because you can't imagine a world without God.
Of course you could.
How? Because that would be imagining no existence.
No, because you're like, through your view, of course, you're a pantheist, so you're like equating God with everything. But say you wasn't a pantheist and you was like I don't know, a henotheist or something, and you acknowledge different types of gods, you can imagine a world without the god of that region or that country in it, or you can imagine a world without the god of the Bible in it. So I don't see how God is automatically necessary, like in that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess I get what you're saying, but then again, like there's a distinction between what types of gods people believe in. And, I've come from the perspective that even if you had multiple gods, like the Greeks and the Romans had,
Mm-hmm.
you'd still have to have this necessary existing thing for even the conception that, oh, we have a god of war, we have a god of the earth, we have a god of time, all this stuff. That's still going to come from this basically force of existence that is necessary. you
Well,
know
that thing is very difficult to pin down. A lot of people have different ideas about what that thing is. Some people would say consciousness.
I'm saying it's just existence. I'm just saying it's existence itself.
I think, yeah, but to me, that idea is hard to even grapple with. What is existence itself? What does that even mean?
Well, I would say if, for example, you're a human being, right?
Mm-hmm.
You exist in two ways. You have your body,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have your mind. So that's existence for you. But then this God is basically exists. He has to, by definition, he has to exist in infinite ways. The only way you can kind of comprehend him is through your mind and body. That's why we have so many. Let me
What?
just finish quickly.
Go
That's why
on.
we have so many of these different religions, because everyone's trying to comprehend this idea of supernatural, all this through their mind and their body. But
Yeah,
if
but
they say
this is
I only
entirely
start,
based on your definition and then your beliefs. This isn't based on a
if you can
reality.
tell me, if you can tell me what senses you have other
Mm-hmm.
than what comes from your mind and body,
Yeah.
then I'd agree.
No, but what I'm saying to you, fundamentally, anytime we point to something using language, we are delving into concepts which are produced by the mind. God isn't something that exists independently like an apple tree or grass. Now, as you being a pantheist, you might say, yeah, God is the apple tree and the grass. But
Mm.
conceptually, someone had to be able to come up with that idea for you to view the grass as God. Someone could also say to you, hey, if God is the apple tree and the grass, then God is also nothing as well.
I feel like what I'm saying is that for me and for every individual, they have a mind and a body, which tells them that they exist. They don't need to be told that they exist, right?
Not
And then
necessarily, right? Because there is the problem of hard solipsism. I know it's like ridiculously skeptical, but it's still a thing.
what's that?
It's basically you can't know for certain that you exist or if anything else exists except from you. All those kinds of things. I know it sounds pretty
Oh yeah,
crazy.
okay. It doesn't really matter as long if you exist, right? Because
Mm.
exactly that's what that philosopher said. I think, therefore I am. He doesn't say
Yeah, it's
everyone else
Descartes.
thinks, therefore they are. He said I think, therefore I am. So it doesn't really matter if you have a solipsistic, mind
Mm.
view.
Yeah,
You say,
but
okay,
like I
I have a
said,
mind
that
and a body.
skepticism can still arrive with the eye when you start to ask yourself, okay, what is the eye that's observing my mind? What is that? Right, that's the
I
thing
mean,
that you're saying
no,
exists.
I'm just saying that this solipsistic hard view
Hmm.
doesn't really negate what I'm saying, because even a solipsist would recognize that they have a mind and a body. And I'm just saying that quote really,
Yeah,
that
I
quote
get
wasn't
you.
my point. That
I'm
quote is
saying
just a
there's
simplification
another level to it.
of
That's what I
that
was
idea.
saying.
Yeah, go on.
What is the I?
No, I'm just, the quote doesn't matter. Oh, okay.
Do you
You're
get
saying
it?
that, what is the I that says I have a mind and a body?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yes, the
So
experience. It's the
the
one experiencing existence.
that's dependent on your senses, right? But
Yeah, yeah.
your senses only matter to you based on your physical existence. But if you're like someone who's like a dualist, you're saying your mind and your body are separate. The mind is interpreting the data gained from the body, but there still has to be some. I'm not saying it has to be. I'm just speaking like hypothetically. Still has to be some external grounding for that I, that is both that becomes the body and the mind. Do you know what I mean?
I don't think it as this existence is now, me and you speaking, I don't think there necessarily has to be a unified resolution for it. If we want to break it down, even the sensations of my mind and my body, they're basically sensations from evolution. Evolution has said, this is what I'm gonna feel, this is what I'm gonna think in this scenario, and
Hmm.
I'm basically just playing a script of that evolution. But I'm something that is experiencing that mind and body. Therefore, I can say that I exist, because I can't imagine right now my own non-existence. I can't
Hmm.
then say that, oh, I can't then say that, God doesn't exist, because something has to exist for all these other things to exist. And I know that I'm dependent, like we said at the start. So
Well, I would say that's
basically,
that's an extra step. I don't necessarily disagree with the first part of what you're saying in terms of you just being like a running program that you just spawned into a already existing system. I don't disagree with that kind of portion of it. But when you jump to the God bit, I feel like that's a matter of you defining things as God, and that speaks to what I'm
I think
saying.
the word God is a massive problem. It doesn't. It's just like it has obviously so many connotations, so many implications.
It could
But
be
all I'm saying is
whatever
that
anyone wants it to be, right?
yeah, definitely. But what I'm saying is that existence is God. That's all I'm saying really. It doesn't that itself doesn't put any claims as to what God is. After that existence part. I mean, it doesn't say he's good. Doesn't say he's all powerful.
So why not
Doesn't
just
say
say existence? Like it is what it is instead of going the next step to say existence is God. Why bother invoke a God concept at all?
yeah. That's a good point. And the only reason I would say God is because this is from a philosopher, and he basically because of the time he was speaking in maybe 400 years ago, he basically said that this he called it substance, he called it existence, and he called it God. All three of those
Which
words basically
philosopher
meant
was
the
that?
same thing. Spinoza.
Oh yeah, so yeah, pantheism.
Yeah. So and I feel like I don't know if you've read him, but I don't, especially the first part of his book.
No.
I haven't really. Yeah, I think if you wanted a good answer without me, trying to explain it to your way, I'd definitely recommend it.
I
It's
mean,
something that
yeah.
you can read, then Google. Okay, what does this word mean? Because it's like 400 years old. But
Mm.
at the end of the day, that's where it's like a tight logical system. The same way that I don't know if you know about Euclid's elements. Have you heard of
Like
those?
from maths and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. You know how in maths you have axioms, you have definitions that give you a truth, right?
Hmm.
He basically said, okay, how can I use that thinking and then apply it to existence and basically get an answer for what God and human existence is. And in the first part of his book, he basically describes what God is, and basically God is existence itself. And because you can't imagine non-existence, therefore he necessarily exists. And whatever else you want to tack on, if you're a Muslim, a Christian, a Jew,
I think it's
whatever, it's your
problematic
own
though
thing.
because of, well, if you think about the world that they lived in, God was still kind of being used even philosophically as an explanatory tool, and that also speaks to like what I'm saying about God being an invention too.
Hmm.
So given that, you don't actually have to go that far into Spinoza's view to say existence is God, right? It's like kicking a can down the road because it still doesn't answer what is existence fundamentally. You're saying, oh, existence is God, and we associate God with this other idea from ancient people, right? But we still doesn't necessarily get to the bottom of what existence really is. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really see that as a valuable uh, thing to have an answer to personally, and I don't really feel like that was what you're trying to you claim, what you're trying to claim. So what I'm trying to say in terms of like
Mm.
this title here is that if you take the Spinozan worldview, God wasn't invented; he was discovered basically when people where he realized, oh, you logically can't really have existence in this way without God. And then
Yeah.
in terms of what he tried to do is basically to explain why things happen in the world the way that they do because of God, right? For
That's
example,
also an invention though. That's what I'm speaking to. But Spinoza's God
what's invented?
Spinoza's God is quite recent in human history. Like Spinoza's interpretation of the universe and God, like and also a lot of Indian influence in his philosophy. That is recent history. It's another type of God inventions, like from henotheism to polytheism to monotheism to pantheism, panentheism, deism, dualism, animism. They're all different
Mm.
approaches to the same question of theology. So,
I know,
but
but just because they're different approaches,
they're
right,
all
it doesn't mean
inventions in terms of these concepts do not exist independently of us. We have to generate this knowledge.
nothing exists independently of whatever you're conceiving of. And what I'm
What do
trying
you
to say
mean?
is that if I take out your eyes and I take out all the senses that
Hmm.
you use to touch, then you might as well just be sleeping, right? And then when you do sleep, all
Mm.
these ideas, all these concepts go away anyway. So
Yeah,
I
but
don't
they can
think
exist
that was the
independently
point.
of you. Like for instance, your body can exist independently of your conscious mind.
Okay, so does gravity exist independently of you?
Yeah,
Okay, so why doesn't a logical system exist independently of you? It's kind of like saying that,
I'm not
oh,
saying it doesn't.
humans have realized that when water flows at this speed, at
Hmm.
this angle, it's going to take out that building. And yeah, at the end of the day, you
Yeah,
don't
but you
need
have
it.
to
It's going to
realize
happen anyway.
there's not
But
like
they've discovered a algorithm, a principle that explains a truth about the world.
Well, that's
So it
that's
doesn't. So it's
that's
not invention.
subjective in terms of what you're saying, but it's not actually analogous to gravity, right? As a concept, gravity is something that's mind independent, but it's also just a description about our reality. A God concept doesn't function in that way, whether it's Spinoza's or the
But
Bible's.
you can't tell. You can't. No one knows what gravity is.
Yeah, it's a description of force or the
But
effects
no
of
one knows
force.
what. Yeah, no one knows what it is. Like no one know. No one really knows what anything is. So this idea of
Well,
like
yeah,
knowing what it is, like no one knows what an atom really is. No one knows what a gravity. Gravity is a
but
great example, because we see it all around. But scientists, Einstein, all the top people that studied it, they don't know what it is per se. They just know it exists, right?
I
Same
understand
thing
that,
with
but
God.
that's not. No, it's not the same. It's not equivalent with God.
It is because gravity is a law, right? Gravity
A
says that if I
descriptive
jump,
law.
I'll come down.
Yeah, a
And then the
descriptive
same
law
way, yeah,
that
cool. And then the
that you
same
could
way that
arrive at
God,
mind independent. Right, someone else could arrive at that same conclusion without Newton, without me, without you.
what
God
conclusion?
isn't like that. The conclusion
What
that there's
conclusion?
forces at work, like I forget Newton's laws, right? But
Yeah, but they wouldn't.
someone
They
can
wouldn't say what
arrive at
those
that
forces
conclusion.
are, right? They
They,
wouldn't
they
say
may
what those
describe it
forces
differently,
are.
but the forces would
Yeah,
be
but
there.
no one is saying what gravity is.
No, you're missing a point, right? When I say gods don't exist independently, mind independent, right? And then you compare
Yeah.
that to gravity, that's like a category error because gravity does exist independently of minds. You don't need to exist in order for gravity to still
But
be in
Spinoza's
effect.
God exists independently of the mind
No,
independent.
but Spinoza's God is an interpretation about the universe. He's
No,
encapsulating
that's your
everything he
opinion
sees.
because you don't. That's your opinion that basically, and the same thing that talking about category errors. You're saying because there's pantheism, Christianity, blah blah blah, ism. They're just all the same people trying to basically come to an answer. But at the end of the day, theories do get discarded. Theories do get accepted. So it's not just.
No,
It's
but
not
the,
like
the view of pantheism is entirely mind dependent, whereas the view of gravity is not.
it
Right?
is. It is the view of gravity is like you have to observe gravity, right?
No, like whether we codify it in language or not, right? Our solar system, our planets will be moving around the sun, okay?
Same thing as with God.
Without any
With
no,
pantheism of God.
that's your opinion. That's what I'm saying. There's a clear separation there, right? That's your
No,
opinion.
because if I started, which you haven't refuted anyway, that God is existence, right?
Yeah,
And this is why I started this.
which is
This is why I
sketchy, which is
started with
very
this point.
sketchy, right?
No, it's just that you disagree with it. It's not sketchy, but
It
you need
is
to consider,
sketchy.
which is why I started with this point, is that when I die, I know that the world's going to exist without me.
The physical world, right?
Yeah. The physical world and basically my interpretation of the world while I was existing is still going to exist when I'm gone. In terms of people being me, be able to see people, animals, birds, all that stuff. Like I also said as well,
Well,
I do believe
you
that
think that, right?
existence is
But
infinite.
you don't know
So
that,
like,
right?
I
Your
do,
subjective interpretation of reality is
I
really
do know
mind
that because it's not
dependent.
dependent on me.
Of
Existence
course it
isn't.
is, because right, like again, I'm not a philosopher. Just to be clear, so I may not express these ideas in the best way possible, but
Yeah,
like
yeah, okay.
when you're saying for instance, your experience would be what Kant calls the phenomena, right? But the actual world, whatever that is the noumena. There's no, like, you don't actually have access to that. So your experience of what a dog is or what a cat is may not actually be the reality. So it only exists with you. When you pass, that view of how the world functions also passes, unless somehow you're able to codify it into like some matrix kind of shit. So I'm saying not like it's not necessarily true. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I I get what you mean. And the thing is, like, at the end of the day, like, I don't know if you've probably heard of Gödel's incompleteness theory. That
I've heard
any
it mentioned, but I don't really know it
yeah,
though.
it's basically like any idea basically starts with an assumption, and you're completely correct. Even Spinoza's ideas, he said himself that it starts with an assumption, but then the point of these ideas and theories is that does it translate to what we see in the real world? And for me, I don't really see anything that Spinoza talks about that doesn't actually translate into the real world, and we can take it apart from there as well.
Well, fair play. I would acknowledge that because I'm not entirely informed on what Spinoza said anyway. I just know like not like the cover story, but just like the basic definition of what is described as pantheism. So I don't know the
Mm.
intricacy of it. Just like I don't know the intricacy of monotheism, various different
Yeah,
styles, right? So I can't say I don't know what he said and what he didn't say ultimately. But what I am saying is the view of pantheism is also an invention. and it's dependent on the mind of the perceiver, like the human, that is saying, I know I don't choose to view the universe as there being a monotheistic creator. I choose to view the universe as the creator itself. Right?
Okay, but
That's a
don't you think they can
mind.
have
That's like, it's like a
logical?
phenomena.
Okay. But don't you think they can have reasons why they would say, oh, it's quite clear that this, Arabic-based Islamic God isn't the one that created this whole universe? Or do you think they're just on the same footing? That, do you know what I mean?
I think God concepts vary. Some are more like well thought through or robust than others. Some are very like, but ultimately like the invention of God was a rudimentary thing anyway. It was a tool for survival. It's just literally us displaying our consciousness onto reality to make sense of it. So
That's
there's,
in some cases as well, but in then
but I
other
think
cases.
it gets
But even with the
more
Kant stuff, he
advanced.
said, the reason why he separated it from nomina and phenomena, whatever, because he said that because we don't actually know. He was a Christian. Kant was a Christian. He said because we don't actually know, we have to have faith, basically. So his idea was,
Yeah,
this is as much as we can know. Like you
yeah,
said,
but we're
you don't know
limited.
if a cat's a cat. You don't know if a dog's a dog. We do know that we don't know. Therefore, because he was a Christian, he basically said, I have faith that the Lord is good. I have
Yeah,
faith that he made the world perfectly. And that was him
but
because he reached that point of noumena.
yeah, but you
That
have to
was
also
his.
acknowledge the history that we're all building off.
Okay.
We're not like just operating in isolated bubbles. These ideas, the vocabulary we're using to describe the world, are all offerings from our views anyway. So like to get to Spinoza, to get to Kant, to get to Thomas Aquinas, all that history of the things that I'm talking about, the invention of the various different types of gods must happen, right? It must
Mm.
go from that, and like ancestors assigning agency to storms and the sun and meteor showers, all the way up to people coming up with internally generated abstract concepts and then deifying
Mm.
them into justice as a god now, war as a god, etc. Then anthropomorphizing both of those things in order to get to the Jesus, in order to get to the Khan, and to get to the Spinoza, etc. To get to bloody Mormonism,
Yeah.
whatever
No, I
interpretation it
get you.
is.
You're saying that there's like I agree. There's definitely a thread of this philosophizing about what God is, and
Yeah,
loads of different cultures borrow almost the same ideas that never even spoke to one another, but they're
yeah. I
coming
think
through
that
the same idea.
because I think that speaks to us being at the foundation of it in many
Yeah.
different expressions. But we can't seem to find the thing that's outside of us that's responsible for it. That's just my view.
Mm, mm. I mean, I guess you're just trying to say that this whole ideas about God is basically just going to be like a wild goose chase for humans.
Kind of, yeah. But like, I don't rule out the possibility of a creator. I don't even like, if anything, if I was to become like more of a believing person, I would be more inclined to pantheism or deism anyway,
Mm,
personally, because I know monotheistic gods are just way too anthropomorphic and exclusive to be real.
mm.
So like, I forgot the point I was making now. But yeah. Yeah, I forgot what did you say? Sorry, I just
Um,
kind of got distracted.
yeah, okay, I was just saying that you think that there'll never be like a conclusion then, because you're saying that there's
Oh
this
yeah,
long
you
thread.
said a wild
Do you
goose
think
chase.
yeah, is that why
Yeah,
you think that? Is that why you're making your point that humans invented God? That at the end of the day, they're just going to keep inventing more stuff, or do you not think
I
that
think
there
we
is
will.
a?
Yeah, but I
You,
also don't
yeah.
think it's a wild goose chase in that kind of way. I think it's just how can I explain this? I think it's just a necessary part of our progress. Right?
Mm,
Like it's just a tool in terms of what we can make use of it. Like unless the guy or the thing itself pops up and is like, "Hey, it's me this whole time," there's always going to be different variations of that. You know, so that, like you can't have a god without humans, in my view, no matter what type of god styling you come up with.
mm, mm.
But yeah, I did
Because
get a bit
yeah,
distracted again.
yeah, no, I get what you mean. Like, but I mean, like, let's say if the world, the Earth just disappeared, that wouldn't really negate the pantheistic view, would it?
Not necessarily, right?
And that's the point, right?
but like I was trying to say, right, I would be open to the existence of a creator. Like, put it this way, a something me and you can describe as God could absolutely exist and it still not be the thing that we claim to be describing, you know?
Something that we knew was God
Right,
could
so
exist, but all our definitions would
no,
be
something that we might call a god, right? So like, because
yeah,
there's so many various definitions of God, some people say God, like you are saying, is existence in totality. Some people say God is consciousness. Some people say God is logic. Some people say God is a man. Because God is a tool, like a just a concept that we can splay onto other ideas, it's entirely possible. For instance, just as like a wild example, there's a higher level species that are aliens that are capable of making galaxies and universes and biological beings like me and you.
mm,
To us, using our vocabulary and our understanding, it would be permissible to also include that entity as a god based on some of the definitions that are floating about on Earth.
mm,
But that wouldn't technically be a god, like in totality. There could still be something above that species, you know, and on and on it could go. So I don't rule out. That's all I'm trying to say is I don't rule out the possibility of there being some, maybe perhaps supernatural entity responsible for this. But I just don't see the reason why I should call that supernatural entity God, knowing that humans have invented every concept of God that has ever been known to man. Right? That, to me,
yeah,
that thing would be an unknown, an unlikely, unknowable. Do you know?
yeah. And I do think that like you said with Kant, and then with Spinoza as well. Like I was trying to say as well, like Spinoza, he called it God, he called it substance, then he called it I mentioned it before, I forgot the third thing that he called it. God, substance, and existence, right? He called it those three things. And at the end of the day, I'm not going to disagree with you that the word itself is completely, bastardized. It can mean anything to anyone. Like you said, like if a people could create universes and galaxies, then they would be like gods to us, right? But then again, they would have to exist, like you said as well, underneath, uh, uh basically, Spinoza's idea of God, underneath existence, right? They would have to be dependent on existence, and even though they're a higher being, right, doesn't mean they even have any concept of what they're dependent on. And that's not saying that God is such a higher being. It's just that God isn't even perceptible to the things that are dependent on Him. You understand? It's kind of like, you
Well,
know,
I hear
you're
what you're
dependent on
saying,
the
but I would
government.
still view
The
that as
government's like this
an
whole system
opinion.
that you couldn't really describe, and you couldn't really point to, but you're like dependent on the government. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I would still like, in a nutshell, to me, that would just be an opinion. That like the definition of that type of God is just an opinion. It's not something demonstrably true. You know,
Mm.
that's the problem
But
with
then
it
again,
all.
I feel like the real disagreement is just like a language problem, right?
Why?
Because like you're saying that because God can be anything, like it just means that He's invented rather than us coming to like a how you say, like an actual, you know, final conclusion of this is what God is. That's why I believe you said, aliens could come that seem so powerful and then people could call them gods, right? Um yeah, well,
Which
I
some people
forgot the
do.
point as well. But yeah. But yeah, I mean, oh yes, I'm thinking that it might just be a word problem rather than me saying that existence is everything. Existence is what we're looking to call God. That being untrue, if that makes any sense.
Nah, can you
I'm just
say it
using the.
again?
So I'm saying that existence is what people would want to call God
Some
if they really
people.
thought about it logically, but because they don't, they call all these other things gods.
Yeah, but can that right? So can an entity be non-existent and still be meaningful?
Can it be non-existent and still be meaningful?
Yeah, so meaning it doesn't abide by any space, time, or matter. Like it's maybe metaphysical or just it doesn't exist by our standards of existence and
Yeah,
still be
yeah, it can.
meaningful.
Yeah. It still can. Basically, that's a good, interesting point to call it meaningful. Spinoza would say possesses reality, and he would say us as humans, we're not that meaningful because at any moment, our life could be snuffed out. Even half of the time when we're asleep, we don't even exist. But that's just our
That's
way
a
of
view.
existence. But
As a
yeah,
view.
because
But
because
how would it
existence.
be meaningful then?
Oh, how would it be meaningful? Because it
Yeah.
would share in basically God exists, right, in infinite ways. Humans exist in two ways: the mind and the body. That's all we know. But we know that because God is existence, He has to exist in infinite ways. So this entity that you're
That
talking
all
about
comes
could
down to
exist
your
on
definition,
on
though. That's the problem of it. It's not
no,
something
it's
you
not,
could
because
know.
I'm saying God is infinite. I'm saying that human beings, we cognize the world through our mind and body,
Mm.
which I don't know. You can come up with another way that you cognize the world. I don't think anyone on this planet understands things unless it's through their mind or their body. But because God is completely, utterly, He has to be infinite and necessary. This
Ooh,
being that
no.
you're talking about being meaningful, it
That.
can exist and us have no perception of it because
Yeah,
we don't
if it
exist on the
abides
same
by your
plane.
definition, right? But there's no
Yeah,
way
but
to
my
test that.
definition has to be true because God necessarily has to exist, and then He necessarily has to be
No,
infinite.
no, it doesn't have to be true. That's what I'm saying. Is there has to be a certain level of acceptance that, hey, this is what I think and this is how I'm defining it. Maybe through better reasoning than other people,
But
but
then
it's
I
still
have to
something
ask
that
you a
I'm
question.
defining it as.
The reason why I keep running with it is because I've brought up multiple times. Like you can't think of your non-existence, right?
I
You
don't.
can't imagine yourself
That's not
non-existent.
something I've actually ever thought about personally, so I'm not really sure.
Yeah. So I mean, what I'm trying to say is that you can't imagine a scenario in which you don't exist because you've never had that experience. You know you're gonna die. You know you're a finite thing. You're gonna die, but you can't imagine a scenario in which you don't exist.
Well, yeah,
So
I'll take that as you saying it, but like I said, I've never really like looked into it like that.
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like well, I'm arguing from a definitive philosophical framework that this guy wrote in a book. It follows like almost like a recipe. It's not like a prose book. It's not like Kant. It's not like Schopenhauer. It's a very mathematical book
Yeah,
that
it's
he
like
wrote to describe
an
God.
analytical philosophy type of approach.
I don't know if it's analytical. I don't really
You wouldn't
know.
say.
I don't know what analytical actually means, to be honest.
It's just like people using trying to be very precise, like in terms of language, of course, and just basically taking an almost totally rational approach. Anything that doesn't fit into that precise rational approach is kind of considered as fluff in an
Oh,
analytical kind of view.
yeah, yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah, he's analytical in that respect.
But hey, what was the point you were saying?
I was just saying, I think it might be a language problem, which I don't think these philosophers, anyone, would recognize, rather than saying that, okay, because I exist, I know that I'm finite. Something else that isn't finite and is all powerful necessarily has to exist. Otherwise, I wouldn't exist. I'm contingent. And then,
Yeah, but
once you
like
basically
I said
say
to
that,
you earlier on, if
yeah,
that's something that you accept to be true, but someone could argue that no, all things are necessary and like we exist in a certain modal collapse, there is nothing that couldn't be what it is. But again, I know it sounds ridiculous to say, any level of conversation we could ever engage in around this is entirely mind dependent. So it's based on us and our interpretation of the world. Nothing like what we're talking about, whether these sound better than other ideas are actual objective facts of our universe. These are views you can hold, but they're stances you can have, put it that way.
mm.
But they're not like matter of facts about the world, as far as I'm concerned,
So
anyways.
do you think there's anything that's matter of fact, or do you think that matter of fact is basically how useful the definition you've given something is to helping you either understand or exist, basically?
Well, I would say some things are matter of fact, but
Okay.
in the same way that they're subjective based on the information you currently hold. But that information again is like kind of stance dependent. It's like how much or something do you know? Like for instance, at a certain point we thought a certain number of stars were in our planet, and that was a fact. Then we gained more insight and we realized, oh no, it's a different number of planets, or variations of things like that.
Mm.
So in terms of true facts, like completely infallible knowledge, things that do not change, I'm not aware of anything like that. I think almost everything is subject to change. It's just the view we currently hold.
Okay, okay. I agree. And then I guess you agree that these definitions change as it becomes more useful to us. For example, if you're like an astronomer, you want to understand the universe. You can't if you see that there are X amount of planets, you can't say, oh no, there aren't X amount of planets, because that would like limit your understanding. So you're saying that, do you agree that definitions are basically as useful as they are to basically helping us, reach a goal? That they don't really describe anything in this perfect, ultimate,
Yeah,
the Ten Commandments truth.
yeah,
Rather, they just exist as definitions that are useful,
yeah. Because
and the most useful ones it continue to exist, right?
I would agree in a way. I think someone said it like this: like words don't generate meaning, right? They trigger meaning. So the
Mm,
words themselves do not generate meaning or definition, right? They trigger meaning to you. What is the relevance of that to you? Or the context of what you're interacting with.
mm,
So from that point of view, then yeah, I guess it's only as useful as it is to you.
okay. Then I would say that Spinoza's definition of God is the most useful definition in terms of understanding human life, and getting to a more true understanding of human life than the other definitions of God and the other descriptions of him. And then I guess the only thing I really disagree with you is the idea of it being invented rather than it being discovered, because invented makes it seem that this is based on humans, right? But then for me, Spinoza's God is independent of humans. Yes, we have to use our mind to understand him. Yes, we have to use our body to speak out and say, this is what I believe, blah, blah, blah. But like the actual concept of existence, right, is like, it doesn't necessarily need human beings to basically be. Like you don't need human beings for existence to be.
I think
So
it's
as a
I think
result,
it's ultimately inescapable. It's always going to come back to you, the subjective experience. I think it's just inescapable. Not to be like crude, but yeah, like whether we,
mm,
like so if we say like space time and matter can exist independently of me and you existing, right? We hold that to be true, but the reality is the moment me and you stop existing, all things technically stop existing from our point of view.
mm.
So I think that the subjectivity is just
Your experience
inescapable,
of them your experience of them
right? But
stops existing.
but
But I mean, while you're alive,
the only relevance of anything to you is its relation to you. If there is no
mm,
you, then the thing technically is of little significance, if at all,
yeah, I agree
existing.
with you. Like, if you have a human body, you lose it, then like your human body's like built for survival. As soon as that's not needed, or you've died or whatever, yeah, you're not gonna have concepts of space, gravity, or whatever. But that's not the point. I guess the point is that while you're alive and while you are seeing other people die, you know that you're still going on. So, through your knowledge, through your experience of your existence, you know that even if I do lose sensation of all these things, it doesn't necessarily, they're going to persist. These things are going to persist in some way.
You would
Because,
hope, bro.
all these things that you're actually looking at, they're not they're not dependent on you per se. They're there because God is those things. And as
That's an
soon as
opinion.
no, it's not.
That's that
It's an opinion.
inescapable subjectivity. That's a view you hold, right? That's not something
It's
you
an,
can say as this is a concrete reality. That's a view you hold about how
wait,
the world
what's the
functions.
view that I hold?
So you said, God, these things will persist because these things are God.
Mm.
That's a view you're holding,
I'm saying that because existence is God, just because I stop
which is
existing,
also a view that you hold, right?
it's a view based on something that you haven't refuted all the times that I've brought it up.
No, it's not that. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not. My point isn't to attack the point. It's just to
Mm.
clarify. Without you, the viewer or the holder of this idea, there is no relevance to it because it's in relation to you and what you choose to be. Well, not even a fact. It's just a framework you're deciding to work from. If tomorrow you should be convinced of a different type of configuration that is neither anything either of us have ever heard of, then this view that you currently hold about God being existence would just change just like that overnight. So you would no
Okay.
longer equivocate all of these things as God. You'd think something else, because it's depending on you.
Okay, but I guess like we can kind of go back to the because basically I would say that we talk about Spinoza calling God existence, substance, blah blah blah. I say God is like the laws of the universe, the laws of everything that govern
You can say
your
that
life.
though. That's legitimate. But remember, like my stance is this: gods are abstract concepts ultimately, and they can
Yeah,
be whatever you
yeah.
want them to be.
I was gonna finish
Right? So,
on
because they're
sorry.
tools in that fashion. Right? So
Yeah.
yes, you could
So
say God
let's
is
get
whatever you
back.
want to.
Yeah. So if I say God is the laws, right, and let's say we talked about gravity, right? Would you say that gravity is like a law of existence? It's independent of humans.
I would say gravity is a descriptive law like we talked about
But
earlier
when you
on.
say it's independent,
But yes, I did say it was independent earlier on.
okay.
Right?
So even okay, so like gravity is an example. Let's just talk about all the forces, right? What I'm trying to get to the point is, let's say tomorrow, or let's say I don't believe in the forces or whatever. I don't believe in them. You know, like loads of people didn't believe in gravity or didn't believe in this push pull force, whatever. You know, let's say tomorrow I don't believe in it, but I still step out in the middle of the road and I get absolutely obliterated by a 40-ton truck.
Yeah,
That obliteration, that force, that destruction, that impact didn't care about what I thought, about what I believed or whatever. It happened because it was necessary. It's
yeah.
necessary that whenever a human being steps out onto a road
I might
and
I
there's a
might
forty
agree with
ton
you.
truck coming,
I might
it
agree with you,
smashes him.
but guess
The
what?
same
There
way.
are
Let me finish
humans
the
that
point. Let me
don't
finish the
agree
point.
with that though.
No, but let me just finish the point though.
Yeah, sure.
That necessity is the same necessity that means that God exists independent
No,
of whatever you want to call it.
that's your interpretation of what God is. As I've said already,
No, I use
someone.
gravity. Yeah, okay.
No, no. Like it's like I understand your view of pantheism. You're literally saying God is all, right? And whether you decide to say God is the grass or God is the law, God is logic, it doesn't matter. And from your view, God can be anything, right? But
Yeah,
that
but then
ability,
again, God.
that
When
ability
we say that,
to
God
assign.
doesn't actually.
No, but
God isn't a
I'm saying to
description
you
though.
that
Right?
ability to assign attributes to God is still a human thing, right?
God, God is below existence. Like this word that we keep using, God, God, God. It's not really the same. It's not really what
So,
I'm really
I,
talking
I
about.
would agree. That's what I was circling back to. Why go
Yeah,
through all of this to invoke a concept of God in the first place when what you're pointing to is
just because the
something
words make it
clearly
easier for people
different?
to understand.
But
It's like
I don't
with
think it
gravity.
is.
I could call gravity. It still
Yeah,
doesn't.
it'd be
It still doesn't
gibberish.
negate. It doesn't negate the fact, right, of this thing, of
Right.
this reality. It doesn't negate the fact.
Yes,
That's
but
why, like,
if
at
you
the end of the
start
day,
calling
if I say
gravity, but
existence is God,
if you start
it
calling
is going to be
gravity a
invented because
skateboard, right,
yeah,
you're invoking a specific meaning, right, in a different category. How is gravity a skateboard? Just like how is gravity, right? We
okay,
understand gravity because we assign meaning to the word gravity.
okay.
So when you start mixing the word gravity with the word skateboard, are you still talking about the same thing?
No, you're not,
Right. So why use God in this setting?
because you basically because at the start I asked you what your definition of God was, which was, I think, like, several things: supernatural,
A category
loads of
definer,
stuff. Yeah.
supernatural
And then
entities or deities.
I just said, oh, my definition of God is existence. And then, I think we got to the point now that we just arrived at where we're saying that, oh, you don't have to, where we agree that we don't have to call this thing God, because I feel like it puts a whole lot of other connotations that we don't necessarily mean onto it, because God is just being so bastardized throughout history. But at the end of the day, the reason why it is being called God is just because in the time period that he was writing in, for everyone's understanding, what people are trying to get at about this, basically this all-powerful, perfect thing. God is kind of the word that we ascribe to it. But then,
But we've
you
touched on
know,
that already, though, right? Because we've
yeah,
agreed Spinoza is just like Kant, just like Aquinas, are all building off concepts that predate them. They're using the vocabulary, the worldview, or the information available to them at the time. Just like me and you are
yeah,
sat here using their
yeah.
information.
But to make a better definition for a better use in reality, right?
But my point is, what's at the base of all of those abilities is us. There doesn't seem to be something independent of us giving us that information. That's a concept that we have seen to have generated and we continue to build upon. That's my point about it. So, like, whether you
So,
call God
but then,
the
but we're a
universe
part
or
of.
you call
We
God Zeus,
participate.
it's still
Yeah.
something we are generating. And it's
So
completely dependent on us.
we participate in God's existence, right? Under this
In
Spinoza
your view, yeah.
framework.
In your
Yeah,
view.
yeah. That's why it doesn't really matter if it's coming from us, because we're not outside God. We exist within God, so it's always going to come from us.
So,
It doesn't mean that
yeah.
God doesn't exist, because the definition means that we have to
Right,
think about it in
but
the
there's
same.
something you're like overlooking completely is the fact that it's you assigning definition to it. It's not a fact of reality. This is entirely dependent on your view on what reality is or how you choose to codify reality. So it's not a
But then
truth about
what
reality.
are facts of reality? We talked about gravity
A
being the facts
description.
of reality.
Yeah, a description.
Okay. And then I'm saying that God is also, I mean, there's not but what I've talked about in terms of existence and whatever exists in the same arena of that necessity.
I don't think it does. I already said that earlier on. Right? There's no God
Yeah,
concept
but then
that is
you'd have
that
to
is
come up with
measurable like
examples.
that. So like I said earlier on, right? A God concept isn't analogous to gravity because we can measure the effects of gravity. But if you were to decide to now say, oh, well, gravity is God, then like you're really fighting a silly battle. Now, don't get me wrong.
No,
I
just because you
think
can. I'm
I
saying,
think pantheism is one of the better views on what gods can be because it's like more generally more harmonious, right?
yeah,
But
but then
it's still all reliant on us viewing it as that. It's nothing to say that this is what it is for sure. That's the problem I'm saying. It's relying on us viewing it as such.
yeah, yeah, I guess what you're saying. I mean, at the end of the day, like I did say that even Spinoza himself, like he said that all these logical systems, my logical system, it rests on this assumption, right? Which what you're saying. It doesn't really matter. It's always going to come from us. It's always going to have this human bias, human assumption. Which
It
I'm not going to
can't
say
not,
that's
right?
not true.
What other place
Yeah,
do we have to operate
it
from?
can't not, it can't not. But then again, he said the reason why I use it is because it's useful for my existence. It's useful for my thinking. So then again, I'll
Yeah,
go back to
and
what
then
you're
I would
saying
agree
here.
to that as God being a tool that we've always used. Right? So God has
Yeah.
always had use, no matter what setting you was going to use it in, for survival, for description, for fun. Right?
Mm.
It's always going to be useful to the person because that's what
But
it's
then
there for.
how's anyone going to change your mind on it being invented then?
Well, I actually know if I knew that, I'd probably have changed my mind already.
Yeah,
Like I just
because
don't
what I'm saying
know.
is that the problem is with the words that you're using. Like it can't be, you can't I can't change your mind, necessarily, in that way.
But would it be fair to say
Because
then
what I'm
maybe
saying is that
maybe what I'm
God
saying
is
is right then?
discovered. What's that?
Would it be fair to say that maybe what I'm saying is right then if you're unable to give an argument that would change that? Or like
No, I still think it's not invented. It's discovered
in
rather
what
than
way, right?
invented.
In the way that the hyperactive agency detection is saying or in another type of way?
In the way that who's saying so?
So the cognitive theory of hyperactive agency detection, like basically
Please
us.
explain this so I
So
can
it's
understand.
like the ancestral mind is like out hunting, sees a bush rustle, right? There's two
Mm,
people, John and a Jane. Jane takes off running as soon as she sees the bush rustle because Jane is assigned agency to the bush. In Jane's subconscious mind, she said either there's a predator in that bush or the bush itself is somehow animated. So it makes sense for me to interpret it as a threat by assigning agency to it in order to ensure my survival. So like the
mm,
earliest types of gods would have been built around that. The same thing could be said about experiencing a thunderstorm, a tsunami, an earthquake, a lunar
mm.
eclipse. I don't know. What do they call that thing? When you see I forget what they call it. When you see that like pattern, I forget what it's called. Anyways, right. But do you mean discovered in that way? Like we experienced something and we decided to say that was God, or do you mean discovered in another way?
I would say discovered in the sense that we've got this like long thread of describing it. I'd say that the strongest thread is right. You had the ancient Greeks, and from the ancient Greeks, you had like the priests in the 10th century, ninth century. And then you start to have like the Renaissance philosophers. Then you had the people like Spinoza who came in the 1700s, basically building up on each other. Building up on each other. Like Aquinas, who I think was like in the thousands or whatever. He was building off of the ancient Romans and the ancient Greeks, right? So like what I'm saying is that there's kind of like this logical system that every 200 or so years, someone comes and basically refines it.
But you're
And,
not you're not
those
speaking to the you're
definitions.
not speaking to the discovery portion of you're speaking
Yeah, I'm
on
saying that
the,
they're
the,
discovering
the
something
innovation of an
more
idea.
true about what they're trying to describe, about this truth that they're trying to describe.
I wouldn't
They
say
discover
I
something
wouldn't
more
say
true.
that's a
That's what I'm
discovery.
saying. Like,
That
for
that
example,
doesn't
that
speak to discovery.
thunderstorm thing, right? Like, oh, the bush rustling thing, so however you describe it.
Yeah,
Like, that is like, because they didn't discover that, oh, there's a bloody hedgehog in the bush or whatever. They had to come up with a theory, and then that theory, that woman, that Jane said, could have worked for 200 years.
it's still
No one went
we
in the
still have
bushes.
that. We still have it to this day. That's why we have views of ghosts and gods and stuff because of
Oh
that.
yeah, yeah, true, true,
That's an
true.
that's an
Okay,
evolutionary trait.
But then as we discover things about the world, you know, those things those things then become the inventions, right? You know, Jane invented that there might be something rustling or the bush is
No,
evil, but
no, she didn't.
someone discovered that there's just a hamster in the bush.
No, so like that's Jane doesn't invent that, right? That's a built-in mechanism of Jane, just like it's probably a built-in mechanism of a lion, right? But what happens is humans innovate on that, and then they start to deify that. So when we take it a step further and we report the event to another member via the earliest types of languages, rudimentary, however it was, and then we start
Mm.
to move with that story as if it's a matter of fact about our world. That's how the agency becomes the concept of God. It's not just because the bush is rustling. Yeah, there could have been a predator in there. Just like the earthquake could have been caused by a monster, or God could be throwing lightning bolts from the sky in a thunderstorm. But it's the point in which where we try to describe that to other people as a concept and then say this is a fact about reality. That's when it becomes a God per se.
Okay, okay. I think yeah, ultimately we probably don't even have a disagreement.
Maybe not. Maybe not.
Yeah, because human beings, I say, yeah, they have invented God. They have invented God, but I feel like if you like, follow the philosophy, it's more about discoveries. Like the way philosophy is now is that there are things that we cannot know, that we can never know, and this took thousands of years of people then coming to reach this conclusion, right? And then the problem is that you have things like physics,
I don't know if
who are
that's
saying
true though.
every what's that?
I'm a little bit more optimistic in terms of like what's possible. I would say if it's possible to know, then we'll know it. But I think things are only considered impossible given what we currently know. Does that make
Mhm.
sense? So
Yeah,
to say it's
I
impossible, I'm kind of optimistic then to say, well, technically nothing
yeah.
is impossible. It's just what
But
we
then would
know.
you not say, like, just physics wise, you are limited in what you can sense, interpret, and think about?
Yeah, probably. Like as a layman, like a non-scientist, of course.
Yeah,
There's
not
so
even as
little
a
I
layman,
know.
but it's mean as like a human being. Like, like those of animals have these senses that they have from their nose, from vibrations, from echolocation, whatever, that are almost even better than eyesight. But we have no concept of, what that sensation would look like, hunting the predator through their smell. We don't know what that actually is like. But
Yeah, I
they
understand.
give they give they that information that thing gets from the smell is a lot more useful than we might get from our eyesight when we're trying to chase a predator. If that makes sense,
Yeah,
But
I do understand that, but I'd say that's where I still have optimism in terms of the process of evolution. We don't know what the future might be. That's what I'm trying to say. So currently, yeah,
mm,
we're limited. Our knowledge is limited. Our ability to experience certain things is limited. But as a species, who's to say where it's gonna go? As like just the universe itself, how the hell could we know? We can make good predictions, but doesn't mean they will be that way.
mm. Yeah, I mean, yeah, even now, I'm struggling to see any like disagreeing. I'd say, okay, going back to the main thing, humans invented God. Humans invented God.
Yeah, like just trying to cook up an argument now, just on the side.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to think. Okay, what does it mean for a human being to invent God? Why would they invent God? And because they invented God, does that mean that Spinoza's logical definition doesn't really have isn't about discovery? Is his one just another invention, right? Because at the end of the day, we don't want inventions. We want something concrete that can make our lives more bearable. And in my
Well,
opinion, Spinoza does
well,
that
why
the
aren't
best in
inventions
philosophy.
concrete?
Because inventions kind of mean that, I don't know, when you talk about invented God, right, it kind of means that it almost, especially with like invented and then God, because God, God is all powerful, God is almighty, like
That's a
he's not
belief that you
invented.
hold. That's a belief that you hold. It's not
I know,
necessarily a
but then
fact of
it's a
reality.
belief based on like the common interpretation of God, right?
Yeah.
That's where we come to the problem. Like, okay, when you describe what God is, it's always going to be a problem. But I think at the end of the day, like if you said to anyone on the street, "Oh, yeah, human beings invented God," there'll be that dichotomy because God, people would say, "Oh, God invented humans." Do you know that? Do you know what I mean? They
Yeah,
wouldn't.
that's because that's
Yeah,
what they've been told, right? But just
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
if you ask me to spell something using a language I've never used, I would struggle to comprehend, like, to be able to do that, wouldn't I? But it doesn't mean this not a reality that I could spell something in a different language.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just that you
But then
just don't have the conceptual tools to engage with it. I'm not saying you. I'm just saying
okay.
in general.
I guess then I would agree with you that human beings invented God, but they didn't invent existence.
Well, yeah, in a way, yeah. I have no reason to dispute that. Like, obviously, something else is still behind this veil, if you will,
Yeah.
right? Shit that
And
we
then
don't know.
you kind
But
of see my point where
I'm
I
just
say,
saying, why
you know,
call it God? That's all I'm saying.
yeah, yeah. Then you see my point where I'm saying that the only reason I'm calling it God is because there's a problem with language there. But you understand that my definition of God isn't the same as all these other definitions of God.
Yeah, I have. Like I said earlier, when I use the word God, I call it a category definer to say that there are various different concepts. I don't just say, hey, God is just immaterial spirit, disembodied mind that created the universe. I'm not that kind of person. I
So
acknowledge the variations.
you think existence exists within that category then?
No. In the category
Okay.
of God, no. No.
Yeah.
I think that's pointing to some larger picture. Right? Like, because even that still, so put it like this, right? Imagine if we was to discover a universal level entity, we still need to know what the foundation is that holds that thing up, as well. You know, we can make assumptions about it. Say, oh, it doesn't need to be created. It doesn't need to experience reality, space, time, and matter. It can be outside. We can say all of these things, right? But we can't actually know with certainty if there is a God. What's keeping it up in space? What's holding it? Is there something beyond it? Or are we saying gods are brute fact, just what they are? Do you know?
Yeah.
So, ironically, I think even gods still give you a type of infinite regress problem, unless you just want like special plead. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I would then just finish it off with saying that yeah, human beings invented God, but human beings didn't invent existence. And then I think what a lot of human beings really want to really look at is existence itself, not this God concept.
I would disagree with you. I'd say that's fine for you to hold that view. It's more of like again, because you're a pantheist, it's more of like a semantic kind of thing. I think the
Mm.
average person really does think of God as this anthropomorphic deity that's just running a scheme in space or in the sky. I think that's more the average person's view on God. Your view is a philosophical view, and it's not niche, but in the realm of God beliefs, there's more people that likely think about Thor more than Spinoza's God. Do you
Yeah,
know?
and I completely agree with you. And I think that's, again, the reason why we have all these philosophical systems or whatever is because we think that the world might be a better place if people thought this way. Um, and yeah, I think obviously the way with Christians, Muslims, and Jews, we see how the world's going with the anthropomorphic gods. So I wouldn't disagree with you there. I would say yeah, most people would have that concept. And even when Spinoza wrote this in the 1600s, people wanted to kill him.
I'm not
They
surprised.
threw yeah, they threw him out of his community. He had death threats. Pretty sure someone tried to stab him. I think he had a friend that
I'm
was
not surprised.
executed. I don't know if it was for the same reason, but he was definitely a problem at the end of the day in 1600s. And this was in the Netherlands as well, which seems like the
He's
most
but the irony of
liberal
that, right?
society.
He's not the only one. Like a lot of these people that we think of as like fingers, great thinkers. Yeah, right. So there's this book called Seven Types of Atheism, and this guy, like, I think it's Michael Gray or something like that. He goes over various different important thinkers who've contributed to both theism and atheism. But when you start
Mm.
looking at the times in which these great thinkers existed, even up to Einstein, so like from Newton to Galileo to Einstein, like I think you mentioned Spinoza, all of these people existed in like a society dominated by theocracy in a very real way, superstition and
Mm.
theocracy. So they couldn't operate openly with these kinds of what would be considered like subversive views against the church and against the standard because of the
Mm.
history of what's already happened. So people had to sneak in these kinds of views very like intelligently. Like for instance, the creation of an encyclopedia had to be done in a clever way in order to combat theology, because people were saying no, you can't have knowledge about how a car is made, how obviously not a car, how ironmongering happens, how cloth is made. You can't just put all this information out there as matter of fact, because God is responsible for all these things, and you as a subject of God in the kingdom whichever you live need to remain mystified by it. I don't think you can hear me, but
Wait, can you hear me?
yeah, you was on a cup of tea.
Oh, okay, I could hear you perfectly. I'm on my phone, so I think when I went on my home screen, maybe something happened. But I heard everything that you said.
Oh, cool. But yeah, like
Um,
people couldn't really just come out and say, hey, like this type of anthropomorphic god is ridiculous because of X, Y, Z. They had to, like, you'd be defunded, like your scholarships and all those kinds of things would be revoked. All kinds of crazy shit could happen to you in that world, and it still can in this time.
yeah, I think even with Spinoza stuff, you start saying this now, people have a massive problem with you. Even people who are atheists as well. Because he doesn't just stop at God. He explains, for example, because we live in God's kingdom, right, as things that are dependent on it. But at the end of the day, like we have, like we talked about that, truck coming to crush you. Let's say, unfortunately, it comes to crush a family member. God knows exactly how that happened. He knew that this thing was going to be coming at this time. That family member would step in, and that person
But
unfortunately would lose their
but
life.
you're invoking an anthropomorphic god by saying that.
No, not. I'm saying that, not. But what I'm saying is that it was predetermined to happen because God is existence and He's infinite. It was predetermined that this thing was going to happen. And anyway, I don't believe in free will. Anyway, I think everything's
But you can kind
predetermined.
of see
In the same way,
how you
for
can't
example,
escape
so
it either.
just to quickly finish, just to quickly talk to that point, like when they want to investigate why this person got run over, and then they look at the CCTV, they might see, oh, this person was bloody drunk at the wheel. This person was,
Yeah.
high or whatever. That would be them getting all the information. But because as humans we don't have access to all the information, we kind of have to live in this kind of handicapped state, really. In my opinion, in the grand scheme of an infinite universe, we're not too much more complex than bacteria or virus or whatever is on this planet. We're just a step above that, but we still have all these questions.
I think that's
that
fair.
kind of, in a way, keep us in a prison, basically, because we have no way of answering them. Like we spent 40 minutes talking about something,
Yeah.
and it's kind of like a prison in that sense as well. But then, yeah, I don't know. That could go on for ages.
It could be, but what I do want to point out though, right? Even yourself, being that you're a pantheist, you still can't really escape your indoctrination to think and talk about a god concept from a monotheistic point of view. Like when you refer to he and it and like how it may operate, how it may think, it's actually a mix and match of all these other layered god concepts from the past. In your view, also. Do you know,
I would have no issues with saying existence. I would happily say, oh, existence. Even if I said existence new.
I don't think you'd
that
be
doesn't
able.
make sense.
I don't think you'd be able to have like a conversation like that though, because it'd just be like saying you'd just like say
But then,
it is,
yeah.
and that would be the end of the conversation. Like there'd be no further words, and it is.
But it is true though.
All
Things are,
you'd
right?
just say all or are or is, and that'd just be it. Like you would have to dig for the information.
If we were smart, when we did have these questions, we would just say, well, that's the way it is, and then we'll get on with our lives, right? If we were actually smart, what I mean, in my
Maybe.
opinion, that's probably a way to live.
Maybe, right? I do it because I think these conversations lead to more important matters or like more interesting thoughts. So, but yeah, truly, there is no like I can put a pin in this. Fine, like I can not pin, but like I can say this is what it is in finality. I don't think that's even possible. But I think because the type of question it is, it leads to other interesting insights about just like our lives in general. So that's why I larp on about it, if you will.
Mm. So what do you believe then?
I don't believe in anything religious, so I can tell you.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% like worked through all my own indoctrination either. So there's times I catch myself thinking certain things. I'm like, why do I think that? So I'm not even 100% sure. Maybe more agnostic atheist if anything.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, I definitely lean more to the point that we don't know, and I think I agree with you that maybe in like 1,000 years we build these machines that give us extra sensory perceptions. We're on like starting with that now with all these brain chips, all this VR stuff. Like it's not impossible, but for this life that I'm living now, that I know I'm gonna die in before all of that stuff might come to fruition. For me, like my personal belief is that I don't know, and then when Spinoza's ideas become useful in understanding my life or the universe around me, then I'll say, yeah, this is useful. But I don't obviously just say every single thing here is completely true. This is my mindset, if that makes sense. But I definitely lean
But
towards
you find yourself But you have to acknowledge you also find yourself in the same place as that like ancestral John and Jill at the bush.
Mm.
This is what I can make sense of for now, whether it's right
Yeah,
or it's wrong. This is how I'm framing the world for now.
and I guess not necessarily that's not really a bad thing, you know what I mean? Because people who don't think past it, they live happy, not happy lives, but they live lives fine. They have kids,
You
they
can
do whatever.
assume that, but again, like
Yeah.
there's that problem of what. How can I know your internal world? Sorry, even if you express it to me through language, doesn't mean I can ever really
I mean,
grasp
like,
it.
say you got to that person's deathbed and you went to them, and they
Hmm.
had kids, they had a nice house, they had a family, they had a car, they had everything that that someone who doesn't think about philosophy or existence would say, oh, that's a
Yeah,
decent life.
but
And then
if
you went to them and you
you
said,
couldn't evade that though.
that bush,
Mm.
it wasn't some monster, it was a hamster. It's not going to really matter to them, is it? You know what I mean?
Well, you could like again, you're allowed to think that, but in the same way, you feel like there's like a not necessarily normative, but there's a standard of which a good life should be led. That is also just as philosophical, right? Like, who said that it's necessary to procreate to enjoy life or whatever your standards of what a good life may be? Who
Mm.
told you that that is a fact?
For
You know,
me,
in
for
general,
me,
yeah.
it's not. Oh yeah, in general, yeah. Well, for me, it's not a fact whatsoever. I don't believe those are things to go towards. But in general, the way that human beings are constituted,
Mm.
you have the sex drive, you have the
Mm.
life drive, you have all these different drivers basically that
And death
inform,
drive.
our biology. So it's kind of like
From an interpretation point of view,
that's why
perhaps.
most people when they have food, when they have sex, when they have a partner, when they have if they're adults, when they have kids that are healthy, they're generally content. The next thing might be boredom,
I think
you
that's a
know.
view. You may be correct in some ways, but I say that's a view,
That's
right?
what most people do, right?
And it would be in the cultural context of where you're coming from. Also, I think those things play into it, and then you also got to
But I feel like
consider the
throughout
divergent type of people as well.
majority of human history, only now, like and I say like in peak places like Korea and Japan, where like couples might not even have any kids or they might have one kid. In most places, like that was universally the standard. You have children in a village and you raise them, you make sure they've got enough to eat and they're defended,
Yeah,
and
but
that's
that's not necessary.
surviving.
Right, so no, yeah, survival is at the base of it. Just like John and Jill assigning agency to the bush, that is part of
Yeah.
survival, and you're going to evolve to the trend towards preserving yourself, whether your own life or your genetics. So you're going to trend towards that in some way. But the reality is, there's nothing to say that doing it that way is the correct way. Now, I'm not trying to say the future should be some strange kind of world where we have surrogates and, like, we produce kids through machines and shit. I'm not saying
Yeah.
it should be like that, but that could be on the horizon. I'm simply saying, yeah, what you're seeing now may be a reflection of the amount of information we have at our fingertips and how culturally the world is shifting. I think that might be what you're seeing. Like, for instance, to say, I was about to start with something very controversial, right? So we'll leave that alone. But
No, you can go on if you want. I like to
no,
hear it, to be honest.
no,
I
we'll
like
leave
to hear
that.
it to
We'll
be
leave
honest.
that alone. I was gonna say in terms of things like that concern birth control, right, and why birth
Yeah.
control is informed about stuff like women's suffrages, the rights to the past, and just general more information around sexual health and living circumstances. Also onto an economic reality of people who can afford to have children, when and where. What are the social political climates that allow for I was gonna say peer or partner bonding, right? These things have an impact on what a good life could potentially be or should be, right? So if you're saying the standard of the past was like you just work, you have kids, you provide for the kids, make sure they're healthy, yeah, that seems to make sense in the context of our past, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what we should have always been doing in that way. That might speak to some just the conditions of the time, do you know?
But don't you think like deeply rooted in our biology are those drivers? Like we see it all over the animal kingdom. Like they weren't just because we were Homo sapiens 200,000 years ago. Whatever we were 600,000 years ago had that same instincts, those same drivers. Do you
Yeah, I
understand?
do think that's written into us in some way. Like I said, like the evolutionary trend is towards survival in whatever mode we can do it.
Yeah, and I think where this came off from was that for most people, they don't need to question this stuff to believe they had, like a good life or a decent life, because at their root, most people are just chasing these survival drives and trying to satisfy these drives. Most people
We
don't
can
know
say
that's what
that.
they're doing.
We can say that, but
That's what they're doing
we'll
anyway.
never know, right? That it's kind of like us saying, hey, like we're players and they're NPCs, right? It's kind of like,
It's not even their players and NPCs. Like me
you
and you,
know,
we're probably both similar age. Like we probably have the same drivers to get money, get an
yeah,
attractive partner,
if
get
possible.
a car. Yeah, exactly. Get
But
all these things. I
yeah,
don't need to know your whole life history to know that that's probably your drivers. Like even here, as you sit on TikTok and stuff,
but
you're trying to get some knowledge. You're trying to provide some entertainment. You're trying to do things that I can assume that you're doing. In your head, you're not thinking that's what I'm trying to do, but through your body, through your actions, I can tell.
yeah,
That's his intentions there.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree with you there. All I'm saying is, yes, there is an evolutionary drive for those standards things, but to say that like this view that we're just throwing out, the average person doesn't think philosophically or deeply. Like we hold that view, but we don't know if that's true. In the same way that I assume you have an internal world and a mind because you have a body like me, but I don't actually know if that's true.
Mm.
So like that's what I
Yeah,
mean when we point and say, oh, the average person isn't considering like the big problems in life and whether God exists. They just want to like have fun, have kids, and just die, right? We assume that because that's kind of what we've been told.
but
But
it's not what you
do we
see as
do
well,
we
though.
know that though?
But it's not what you see. Like when you like even like for example, I was in London the other day. Massive city. At any one point in time, you can see thousands of people walking around. Right, they're all kind of doing the same thing. They're trying to get their survival
The base
power, trying to
things.
get some money. Get a job. Work their job, get some food, go back home, go rest. They're
Yeah,
all.
but
I don't need to
though
know
all of those things
their
are
mind.
symptoms of their circumstance, not necessarily their like internal reality. That's what I'm saying. And you're observing their life from outside. So you
Yeah.
can't actually know. But
I mean, okay,
the
okay.
standard things are true, yes. Like the drive to procreate, the drive to feed yourself and survive. Yeah, like they have their needs that must be met, right? Or at least
Yeah.
attempted to be met.
But then I
I
guess
agree
a
there.
clear example would be, you'd have, in a stadium, you could have 100,000 people watching a game in a stadium, and millions of people all over the world, tuning in to watch the same game. But I doubt you'd ever get 100,000 people to go to a stadium for a debate like this, and have millions of people watching it. And you ask someone on the street,
Hey,
oh, why didn't you tune into that debate? They say, oh, it has no value for me. I
yeah,
don't care
but
about
that
that.
speaks to that speaks to conditions of our reality. Things like capitalism, right?
Yeah.
What where our time is actually going, where we've been indoctrinated to put our
But
thoughts
but
and our
me and you, we
energy.
both still live in that system. But for whatever reason, we have just a more inclination. In my opinion, we just get more enjoyment from trying
Maybe,
to tussle with these ideas than other people do. And I think
maybe
that's
true.
enough to conclude that majority of people are kind of just, in my opinion, it's a bit rude, but they just sleepwalk. And I also sleepwalk through life as well. I'm not
Yeah,
saying
same.
I'm the conscious guy exactly. When I want to go to McDonald's, you'll see me
Yeah,
walk to McDonald's. You'll see me press the buttons. You see me get the order. Like
sure.
I'm not thinking about it, but what I mean, like there's that drive to get McDonald's. But I would say like it's probably quite safe to assume that most people.
Don't
But at
get
the
me
end of the
wrong.
day, you're completely right.
I agree with
I don't
you,
have the
but
mind of
I just try to leave the door open for a certain optimism, like of my
no,
fellow
no
man.
optimism.
Because if we're
No, no optimism for that.
eh, no, but like
I don't have any for that.
think about it like this, right? I know it's a really shitty analogy, but at a certain point, right, Thomas Anderson was just chilling in the Matrix on his computer. Right? He was exactly the same as Agent Smith and anyone else in the Matrix. So there had to be a level at a certain point where there's something in this programming that makes it possible for a normal person to step out of their comfortable realm of existence to experience something else. So by that standard, I'm no different to Thomas Anderson, to the agent, to the guy that wanted to get the steak, right? I'm no different, and they're no different to me. I'm just viewing their story from outside instead of inside.
Yeah, I kind of because I'm not really familiar with the end to end of the Matrix or what happens in the film. So could you explain that point outside of the Matrix? Were these
So
guys people that were trying to discover truth? Is that what you're trying to say?
well, yeah, obviously, like Thomas Anderson, Neo, right? To at
Oh,
a
okay.
certain, when the movie begins, Neo is already searching for the truth, right? But prior to Neo searching for the truth, Neo is just a normal person like everyone else, like the random guy that's going to get McDonald's, right? That's not thinking about
Yeah,
like Carl and, and Spinoza, right? At a certain
yeah,
point, Ne-
Still here, by the way, if mine.
Thomas Anderson transitions from Thomas Anderson to Neo, but there has to be a possibility for that. So average person going to get the McDonald's is also Thomas Anderson and is also Neo, right? That's what I'm trying to say. So yeah, like me
Yeah.
and you are like thinking, yeah, like we're thinking deeper than the average person. But even in your view, as a pantheist, the average person is essentially me and you as well,
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay,
right?
okay.
Do you
Yeah, I
get?
agree with that. Yeah, what you said. Maybe did I disagree with that earlier?
No, like maybe the point is just it's got a bit wayward.
Yeah, but no, I do agree with that. Like, yeah, but I would say there is something within people. Either what happens for me, in my experience and what I've been told as well, is that life completely wrecks someone, where no Muslim God, no Christian God, no relationship they have in their real life, nothing basically gives them an answer. So then something within them grows where they become that answer for understanding the world. They don't try and lay it off to other people, or people are just born with like it's a bit woo woo mystical, but there's something called the Gurdjieff tradition, and
Never
people are
heard about
born
it.
with something called. Have you heard of Gurdjieff?
No.
Yeah. So it's a long story. If you have any questions, I can go into it. But he said that people have something called a magic center, no, a magnetic center, and basically people who are able to talk about these things at length, they naturally actually find each other. They're naturally able to. It's almost like a frequency that you put out. For example, you put out this humans invented God, change your mind, and naturally I said, okay, I want to speak up and even test my ideas and do that. And his concept was, okay, people have a magic sensor. Another way I've been told is that someone basically has to be on the worst moment of their life completely, then they start trying to get their own power, their own understanding. I kind of believe both things as well. Even for me, I feel like I don't really relate to most people. um, Most people they would tell that I'm a bit different, and they'll pick me out very quickly. Like you don't need to go into my life. It's happened so many times, and I've met other people who are like, yeah, Tino, this is how it is. Basically, if you want to go down this path, it's not what I'm describing. It's nothing special, woo woo or anything. If you're in the same room, it wouldn't be like anything special, but it just makes at the end of the day, we talked about definitions being useful. This way of living and thinking has been more useful than my other ways. And I also believe that just naturally within me there is that magnetic sensor that wants to understand life at a deeper level. But even now, like, I'm on my own journey of learning is kind of stuck now. And I know other
In what
people have
way?
gone over this, but for me, I feel like there's nothing to do here but just to die.
Oof.
Like at the end of the day,
Rough,
like
but kind of true.
yeah, like for me, I feel like life is suffering. I don't feel like there's really anything good in life per se. Then I feel like death is the release of that suffering. So as a result, why should I do anything but just wait until I die? And
Nah.
then someone who counteracted me said that you have to basically love understanding. You have to love trying to understand the world and yourself. Otherwise, you're not gonna want, because if you loved understanding
Got
the
love
world and
torment. That's what you
yourself,
gotta love.
yeah,
Yeah.
that is actually
You gotta
what.
be like a
Um,
masochist of some kind.
yeah, no, definitely. That's what he would say as well. Like, you have to be that person who wants to understand their pain by going into their pain, not trying to say, oh, God will make it better, or X, Y, and Z. Um, yeah, I don't know if that came off a question
No,
for you or
I do understand the view. Don't get me wrong. I'm just a bit sheepish about the not necessarily like nihilistic in a Christian type of view. It's more like it can. What you said came off a bit fatalist about there's nothing left to do but just die, so I do anything kind of thing.
mm,
Now, yeah, as a human being, I've had my moments like that as well. Right? Who hasn't? But I can't. I think that kind of fatalism is something that in itself can be a fight worth living for, to make sure people don't go around feeling like that. Does that make sense?
yeah, yeah. But then I feel like once you get a true understanding of this reality that we're living on, this planet Earth that we're living on,
Mm.
that trying to make people not feel like that is going to become impossible, because as soon as I could describe to you how I view this planet in existence, right? But then again, it might be a bit dark, it might go deeper. But I feel like
Bit Gnostic, maybe. I don't know.
even even deeper than Gnosticism, but very
Yeah,
Gnostic, definitely.
damn.
It's kind of, for example, like look at what this fucking thing is doing to you now. It's trying to eat you,
Yeah,
trying to
what?
kill you.
Because I bothered
Before,
it.
before, yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, that's fine, that's fine. But
True.
before we had all these different ways of basically defending ourselves, this planet was literally eat or be eaten.
True.
You know, most things that even have sex, right? They get raped. You know, the male comes in, like, kind of forces itself onto the female.
Yeah,
Not all
nature.
the time. Yeah,
Nature,
not all
nature
the
is
time.
just is ultimately hedonist. It doesn't
Yeah,
it doesn't
yeah.
consider
It's
these
like
things in
a
that
yeah.
way. It
And
has
that's
got a
what
reason
human
to.
life, in my opinion, even now, even to this day and age, is as well. Like, there's not like some saving grace, I feel like, in humanity that kind of makes life worth living. And that does, like, you know, for me, I have projects I work on. I have people that I meet. I live a normal human life, but in the background, I'm not gonna look at
In the
some
background, you're
homeless
Dexter, bro.
person. Maybe. But the
I'm
thing is,
joking.
it's actually stopped me from judging people. I'm not going to look at someone and say that person, because they're not doing X, Y, and Z, is like a worse human being or whatever. I realize that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you do, you're going to die. So, like,
Yeah,
and
true
that's not a
that.
bad thing necessarily.
Yeah, it can be actually a type of freedom, a type of release to figure that out. It's just whether you can
Yeah.
commit to that understanding and not still run into that same it's like invisible walls,
Depression.
you know,
Yeah. I think
or
I've
limiting
gotten
beliefs.
I've gone over the hump of it being something that, you know, stops me from acting in life. You know, I'd say I've had successes in life that people would say, "Oh, he's not like a suicidal person," but like, I think that it does give you freedom because, you know, what do you really have to fear? What are you really going for in this life? You know, you lose everything, and all these religions are basically trying to tell you that you lose everything anyway. So, like, you know, I
I
think it's a
definitely
powerful
understand
way
what
to
you're
look at it.
saying. It can be as long as you can commit to that view. That same you've not necessarily made an inversion, but you've taken that same pessimism and you're saying, look, it is doom and gloom, but because it's doom and gloom, I'm released from it. Right? I've reduced the pain of it because I'm accepting it. You know, but it's difficult to actually operate in that kind of fearless place day to day. You know, because you still combat other ideas as well, or other limitations. So like
Yeah.
ideally, yeah, like you're supposed to think, yeah, we're gonna die. I may as well do what I want. But practically, sometimes it just doesn't play out like that. Do you know?
Mm. I think practically when you do believe in it, like for example, Jesus said, for me, Jesus wasn't some next guy who resurrected whatever. What he knew the world was this bad place, and he understood. He said the kingdom of heaven is within, so he wanted to empower people, but you know his message got, you know, messed up, all that stuff. But something that he said was important is that, you know, no man who doesn't hate his friend, his brother, his mother, his sister, his cousin can follow me, can understand me. You know, those disciples that followed him, they had to give up absolutely everything. And that's what you have to do. You have to basically give up on life completely. You know, I could go into my story and the ways I've given up on life. And when you give up on life, other things can come into and fill that void. You know, when you're not saying that God is this guy with a grey beard who, you know, if I do something bad, he'll, you know, spank me or whatever. When you say I don't know, something more natural and real comes in to kind of fill those gaps, if that makes any sense.
I would agree with
So I
that.
feel like,
I think that's good
yeah,
advice.
yeah, yeah. I think, but then again, like you said at the start, like how many people are going to be able to leave their mother, brother, sister, blah 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 blah, to, you know, basically get nothing out of it at the end of the day because they're not going to live forever. They're still going to die. Do you know what I mean? So yeah,
True.
but I feel that is the path though. That's the hidden path that people don't see.
I can't again. I don't know if I'm able to actually articulate it, but I understand. I understand that in a kind of Jesus was delivering that in like an enlightened kind of sage way, in the same way that like
Mm,
some Stoic philosophers might deliver it, or some Taoists, or you know. I feel like
mm,
that's what's underneath that. It's like a true timeless wisdom kind of thing about how one should live. Do you know?
mm, mm,
But again, the day to day existence is you're so you're not only are you combating the world, the external world, you're also combating the internal world of all of your programming. You know, all of the things you think are the case, which may not be the
yeah,
case, or you know, so it's not as easy to live that out, which of course is why the guy's basically a saint, right, or God, right? Because
Yeah.
he was able to, apparently. You know? But
Yeah.
it is good advice. So.
Yeah. That's the thing is, yeah. Even the people that I speak to, like no one will be able to do it. People are too attached to their families, their desires, their status or whatever to simply let go and walk away. I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I'm not, because even when I'm saying it, I'm not trying to say like, oh, it's like some next Buddhist mystical experience. It was like a death. It was like I died in life, right? And then I had to come back and re-understand these things without all the programming and bullshit I had. I had to live in the world, then also had to restructure my internal world. But because at the end of the day, like another thing as well, another kind of mystical thing is that, when you show that you have that capability, that instinct, the universe kind of like sees, oh shit, there is this thing here that's not trying to be like everyone else, that's doing X, Y, and Z. Whether you want to believe me or whatever, the universe might say, oh, let's help him out a bit. Let's give him a bit of leverage, right?
That's an
And I've
interesting
seen it.
view.
Yeah, I've seen it in my life. I'm not going to say the universe tapped me on the shoulder did this, but I know things happened in a way, and everyone really has this experience. It's nothing special, but like I know someone who went down my direction, the chances of success aren't high, you know. So yeah, who knows? It could all go batshit soon, but like
Mm.
I definitely feel like there's been support that isn't from a human being that is been supporting me, you know, since I gave up on all this stuff. That makes any sense. Again, that's hard to articulate.
Well, look, there's nothing that I could actually say that would all I could ever try to do is understand the experience you're conveying. I can't really know, you know. And at the same time, I can't say no. It's not some mystical thing that's guiding you. I can't say no, it's not. But it just depends. Like the way you've delivered that is quite reasonable, right? Without like going off the deep end, you know. Like, but people throughout history have described a similar thing in different ways, like a Philemon or a daemon or an angel, or my higher self, a god, the universe. People have given the same kind of view, but what what I would say is it really what you're saying really just speaks to human experience overall anyway, right?
Yeah.
It's not like right. So maybe I'm not really saying what I mean properly. That kind of ability for transformation and a change of pathways is something that is possible to all people, but
Most
it's not
definitely.
necessarily actualizable, or if you do actualize it, you're not necessarily cognizant of it. Do you know?
Yeah. That's why, Gurdjieff, he would say the reason why it's not possible for most people is because they're put to sleep, right? And that's what we're talking about, those instincts, A lot of people, they have the instinct where all I need to do today is make sure that I'm fed, my partner, or whatever. I get a partner, or I maintain my partner, and then I maintain my kids. And that's there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. I'm not saying there's anything wrong, but being in that mindset, it puts you asleep to the other possibilities of life.
Yeah, I
And
can
it
see
doesn't
that.
mean that you don't, yeah, it doesn't mean like you don't do those things, but you become aware that really the only reason why I'm having a wife, the only reason why I'm getting food, the only reason I'm having kids isn't the story I've told in my head that this is my life, this is my story. Is because this is what, nature wants from me. Nature wants to use basically my body to get my DNA, to then replicate my DNA so it can do that forever. That's nature's happiness, right? That's what it will tell you anything to get to that end goal. It doesn't care.
Well, yeah,
It's,
that's a view you can have, I guess.
yeah. And then in that way, like, I think the Buddhists call it, the thousand things or the 10,000 things. They say people are distracted by the thousand things, 10,000 things. And if you ever watched your mind, you would know that it's probably quite difficult to, if you're not trained, it's quite difficult to, you know, meditate for like more than 3 or 5 minutes and keep your mind completely clear or anything if you
Absolutely.
don't have training in it. And you see, because the mind is just, it's a problem solver, it's a distraction machine. But it's like,
Truth be
once
told,
you keep,
though, there's no
yeah,
don't get me wrong, right? I do respect the idea of meditation, but truth be told, there's no it's no proof that it is also a necessary key to something else.
oh,
There's no
I don't,
final truth
yeah.
to that.
I don't think it is. I think meditation for me, because I'm quite like head heavy intellectual person, I don't really feel my body as much. I don't go into my feelings as much. But if I'm able to meditate for the most I can do it is like 10 to 15 minutes. If I'm able, and the only thing that I do is just feel my body. So, I might feel a bit of tension in my stomach, a bit of tension in my chest. Then I
Mm.
might say, oh, that tension happened today because I had an argument with someone. And that's why my body's feeling a bit weaker, a bit diminished. That's what meditation is for me. It's about listening to the body. But I
Mm.
don't think it's necessary per se. And then it will get to a point, I've been told where it kind of reaches a ceiling where you're not really getting anything out of it. The thing that I've been told is most powerful is believing whatever you want to believe in terms of what I've said I believe, but then going out into the world and interacting with people who don't who have no understanding, no not training, but like no understanding of themselves. For example, like
Mm.
probably back in school, you can imagine like all these teachers that were just screaming at kids for like basically no reason. Like them screaming was probably doing more damage to themselves. Like even
Probably.
sometimes when I think about it, how they would scream in the hallway, everyone would hear it, and it'd be like some kid didn't have a shirt tucked in or something stupid, something that didn't warrant that scream, right? But
Mm.
like I feel like the only reason a teacher would do that is because they don't know why they're getting angry.
Yeah,
They just want to let it out. You know what I
they're
mean?
playing out their traumas,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
because
they're
now that we're
unconscious. It's
adults,
completely
we're like
unconscious.
them
Yeah,
too, to an extent,
yeah,
or at least we're allowed to have that distance to say, actually, right, that teacher was a human, right, my parent is a person, kind of thing.
mm, yeah, yeah. And that way, they're playing out a trauma. They're playing out a position where now they're in power. They're showing to all the other teachers, I know how to control these people. They're just being unconscious and animalistic in their drives, right? But like someone who's conscious and aware, let's say they saw a kid do something wrong, before they start screaming, before they rip off the kid's head, they might say, "Why is what this kid done made me feel this way? Not think this way, but feel
Yeah,
this way."
that's not
They
an easy
might
thing to
feel,
do.
yeah, exactly in the moment. But the thing is, the most powerful, in my opinion, the most powerful times of human existence is in those 3 seconds before you do something like that, where you can fully feel it in your body. I've sometimes have been lucky enough to basically feel my body before I make an unconscious automatic response. And like, yeah, if you can do it, then you probably see how, whoa, that moment was incredibly powerful because I didn't just let the animal take over. There was something within me that actually tried to register what was going on. The more you do that over a lifetime, in truth, what you've actually built is a life that people around you do not have, an understanding that people around you do not have. And what it does really, it frees you. Because if you know why you're getting to get angry at a kid, you're not going to raise your blood pressure and scream at him. Because you can
Yeah.
understand, okay, the only reason I'm getting angry is because, in my past, a teacher shouted at me and I want to reclaim that power, whatever reason it is, right?
Mm.
And that's going to give you what's called, freedom. Like that's going to give you freedom in life. Because a lot of people, when they get angry, they can't help it. How many people are on the court, they said, oh, I just couldn't help it,
Yeah,
X, Y, and Z.
it's an
Because
impulse,
they don't
but
have,
it's still a
yeah.
valid anger is still a valid
Oh,
emotion. But
yeah, that's why
if it's
I
impulsive,
think,
then it's danger.
yeah, I think you're alluding to it earlier that there's nothing really special going on here.
You you
But
went
it's like,
you went you went muffled, bro.
oh, oh yeah, okay. Can you hear me okay?
Nah, you're muffled.
How about now?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think like you're alluding to earlier, like, okay, there's nothing really special. You still have to live like a normal life. Like you said, anger is still a normal emotion that you're gonna have to express anyway. And for me, I would never say, oh, don't express your anger, don't express your love, don't express your hatred, whatever. But if you can feel it and think about it, then that's basically the best you can do. And I feel like 99.9% of humans don't do that. And that's kind of where that's the only distinction, really. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I can I hear what you're saying. I do think it interesting. Like if you, I don't mean this like in like a jarring type of way. I mean like I think it's interesting your view on separation or like a you could say graduation. Saying this is what the average human level is. This is the level I aspire to attain.
Mm,
I think that in itself is an interesting type of fixation. I'm not saying that you are fixated in that kind of way, but just in
Mm.
this, based on the conversation, I think it's
Yeah,
interesting.
I think you know once you like once you're told about this, then you see it in your real life. It basically starts something within you that it might be another 2 years before you consider it, but there'll always be something in the back of your mind that tells you, "Let me understand this accurately and clearly." That's the only value I'm going to get out of this situation
Mm.
if I try and understand it accurately and clearly. And then the more you build that, the more you do build, in my opinion, this. I'm not. I might as well be elitist about this superior existence, this superior life, and what I feel like what Jesus was talking about. You build this kingdom within you that no one can shit on. Like no one can shit on how you understand the world. No one can shit on how you understand yourself and things like that. Um, and but people can shit on all the other stuff that you put value in. You know, someone might decide, oh fuck it, I'm gonna have sex with your wife, or fuck it, I'm fucked up in the head, I'm gonna kill your children. They can shit on it. The government can shit on it, but your own understanding of that situation is kind of yours.
Yeah,
And then,
that's
yeah,
some stoic shit right there. That's Epictetus through and through.
yeah, definitely. That's why like all these people are basically saying they are saying the same thing, really, which is kind of just don't get too attached to this world. And basically, I feel Jesus anyway, and the Buddhists as well, basically saying save yourself by not getting attached to this world.
Yeah,
If that makes any sense.
yeah, I hear that. I think that's an important part of the message. But I also read a certain type of danger in that message as well. You know, or like
Mm,
a level of escapism, even in that. You know, because yeah,
yeah.
like I am right. So I'm creating a psychological separation between me and the things that I value, the people I love. But why do I create the psychological separation? Ultimately, it's to stop myself being hurt by the damage to that thing, which would cause me damage, my ego or my, my feeling of possession of that thing or that thought.
Mm,
You know, so even that is still a. I'm not saying it's cowardly. It's still a type of escape from harsh reality too. It's like I can
I think
retreat. I can retreat
yeah.
into my mind, and then I can just concern myself with my thoughts about the matter, and that gives me
Mm.
comfort in dealing with the reality. You know.
I think that's where like it can become completely how do you say that perverted. One man could take it in that direction, and because he's decided to just basically protect his ego, he hasn't achieved anything. He's not done anything. But then remember, I said that the greatest part of the work is believing these things, but still living like a normal life, still having to interact with your father who you might not like, still having to interact with your kids who get on your nerves now. But like you're going into that reaction with a higher level of understanding of that interaction. That's the most powerful bit of it. So
You've armed yourself with tools, basically.
yeah, yeah, you find yourself with tools that they're not there to protect you and make you retreat into your mind. If you're doing that, you're failing. You're not doing it correctly. You're perverting the energy that you're trying to create. If that makes any sense, they're there for you to basically go back into life, let life screw you over, but then build that energy continuously. And then the most mystical part of it, which I don't know, is that when you die, maybe there's something that is left within you that is your own, that is valuable, and who knows, maybe that's useful to the universe in some way.
That
That's
that
kind of like where the
that
whole thing is tending towards.
that's kind of akin to the idea of soul building.
Okay.
So it's like a view that all of these like tribulations and sufferings you go through is to build that thing that you're talking about, that unique essence of you.
Mm.
That's kind of like the idea of it. Although it's used as like a like an apologetics kind of scapegoat. Oh, why do bad things
Yeah.
happen? So to build your character, But in a sense, it's the same essence. If you do like master your experiences in that way, then maybe there is something uniquely created in you, which you might call a soul or
Mm.
some residual like a extension of you.
Yeah.
So,
That's why I feel like it's so subtle, it's so unseen, it's so you can't grasp it. Because, for example, one person could go through a massive tragedy. They lose their parents, their kids in an accident or whatever, and they're done for life. They have depression for life. They got PTSD for life. It's completely over. And another person might go through that, they'll be completely done for maybe 5, 10 years, but then for whatever reason, they start trying to understand it and try and basically live with it and accept it, right? You don't know in that situation how are you going to react. You don't know if maybe
Mm.
the day after you kill yourself because you can't take it, which a lot of people do. I think hundreds of thousands of people kill themselves. Maybe I don't know every day, but maybe at least every week across the world or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, so it's not like uncommon that people just can't fucking take it. That's why, like, another thing that I was told as well is that you never get more than you can bear. You always get enough
Oh
that you
damn!
can
I
take,
wish
which
that
is
was true.
yeah, no, but you might think that. But for example, like we know some people who lose everything, their family, whatever, but they're still kicking, if that makes any sense. But for me, I don't know how much more bullshit I can take, and then try and just cope with understanding before I'm like, oh fuck it, I need to leave now.
Yeah,
I don't
but
think I'll get to that point, but
it's patience. But again, like, and there's the I should hang around to see what good things could happen, and then there's also the ego. It's like, oh yeah, I like me and being me too much to exit this thing, even though I'm suffering. That could keep you here too. It's like,
mm, yeah,
so I hear you. So I'm just obviously when you start talking about self deletion, it can be, or so for like put it this way, to unprepared ears who don't hear the whole context of what we're talking about, it can be a bit dangerous, you know.
oh yeah, most definitely, yes, yeah, yeah. I'll try and because I normally don't, but I'll try and be
Nah,
conscious of that.
but yeah, it's you know what it's like, and it should be like that on the internet.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, honestly, but it is what it is.
Yeah, but I mean, that's kind of a dampener, you know.
What's that?
The
That you can't.
the bummer note that you just like kind of left on, like, I don't know how much more of this I could
Oh,
take.
oh, yeah, no,
I hope,
because
like, I mean, I hope that's not true though.
no, yeah, no, it's not like that. It's like, for example, like not lost family, but like I've had to turn away from it for reasons. I've had to suffer through that, and then in life you're gonna have to financially support yourself. You're gonna have to know where you need to live, and then being a young man in this economy, that's got its whole all its host of problems, right?
Sure.
But it hasn't like destroyed me, if that makes any sense. I've been able to bear it. But then I don't know if, let's say, in another 20 years when I have a kid and family, God is like, oh, sorry, I'm gonna take him away. Like, I'll just be like, you've already done so. You know what I mean? Even though I know that
Yeah.
there's this path of understanding. Some people that I've met doing this stuff, they've had way worse traumas than I have. Even physical, traumas that, disabilities that they've had to deal with, adapt to when they weren't disabled before. Way worse stuff.
And the first thought's always going to
Bruce,
be, why me?
what's that? Sorry.
The first thought is always going to be, why me?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. But then I see those people. I've seen what they've had to bear in life, and they're still, in my opinion, doing the most difficult part. Trying to understand it rather than
Exit.
just going with it. Yeah, that's why I feel like I don't know how much more, because life is suffering. I don't know. You can't even imagine what suffering the world might have in store for you.
Yeah,
So
it's true. But there's still an interest in kind of finding out, you know, like
yeah,
it's like
yeah, true,
what
true.
kind of torture mechanism is life going to throw at me tomorrow evening, you know? Is
Yeah,
the anticipation can give you anxiety about what is possible, but at the same time, again, to like reference Epictetus, it's like the bad things could, whatever bad things befall me, I should be prepared to say, okay, what tools do I have to make use of this experience, even though it's effed up.
mm,
Right? I don't think that once you know that that's a possibility, I don't think that will ever end for you. Now you might not be able to have that clarity in the moment, but if you stick around long enough, you gain the clarity and the insight of the event, you know, and then you get the tools from the event if you can bear it, you know.
yeah. I mean, yeah. Just to like clarify, I've definitely never had any reality of self deletion whatsoever. No thoughts, no thing. I'm just saying that
Good, good.
obviously when you start thinking realistically, those things aren't as morbid as they were before. Like you understand why someone might do it completely. If life completely just destroys them. That's what I'm trying to say. That's what I'm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um.
but yeah,
I don't. I
like
don't.
for
Yeah.
people that do go through those like places where things have gone that wrong where they feel like leaving, they need the information to know that actually, although this is absolutely the worst thing that I've experienced up till now, there's still, again, here goes my optimism, there's still something to be gained from this. Like, even if it was losing your child losing your limb, you know, just whatever to you is the worst thing possible, even if it was that, there's still something to be gained from it. And this has come from someone who doesn't think it's an anthropomorphic deity throwing these trials at you, you know? So that's worth considering. It's just a matter of how you're gonna approach that event. If hopefully it never does come, but if it does come, you know.
I think what you're saying is like best case scenario.
Oh, you're muffled, bro.
Is it okay now?
Yeah, yeah.
Like a lot of people in the third world, like we don't even imagine their suffering, right? Like the suffering of just a child that is born and then they die at like 4 from a horrible, easily preventable disease. Like, what was there really to be learned in that child's life other than I was basically just born to suffer? And you know, any one of us could be
No
born in
doubt.
that position.
No doubt. But that, remember, that view is still also a privileged view, right? Because it's not our suffering. Nah, this is not me caping for that. You know, why is there bad shit in the world? Of course, like there's lots of things I look at and I think, why like, again, if there's a God, why did you do that? You know, don't get me wrong, I feel you on that, but we're still privileged from outside to be looking at that, so it's hard for us to grasp what it might mean. You know, but I'm not necessarily saying there is like the 4-year-old, or like let's just say like a premature born baby, like maybe it doesn't even have the tools to conceptualize its experience in that short period where it was alive. Why should it suffer? I don't know, you know. I really don't know. But should it survive? It's like a brick's been added to it, you know. It may not be fair, but it's a unique experience, no less, you know.
Yeah. That's why, like, even sometimes might not just be worth thinking about. Like, some people's like suffering is just, like you said, like you don't want to assume how they're dealing with it or whatsoever. But,
Yeah, like again, how much burden can you carry, right? How much burden for other people can you carry as well? At a certain level, there you do need to engage a certain ignorance or an indifference for your own sanity.
most definitely.
So,
That's why,
it
like,
could be cold, but
you just don't. For me, yeah, you just don't. You can't get sucked into it. Like you can listen to someone, you can offer them practical advice, but what people like to do, they like to like suck people into their misery, right? They like to
Right.
like almost like make you now have an opinion. Like if someone wronged them, instead of actually getting like the objective understanding of it, they want to suck you in so you can have an opinion, and then you might think, oh, I formed an opinion. I know the truth of the situation. I'm powerful, but all you've done is basically just taken on someone else's pain. That you
yeah,
didn't have to do, thinking that you're being a good friend or whatever, just because you didn't
True.
want to just be a bit more objective about things.
yeah, like well, yeah, I can think of some experiences in life where, in the time, I think I was being harsh, but a little bit later, I'm like, okay, what more could I have said? You know, what more could I have done anyway? You know, so yeah, like I know it's effed up, but shit, I'm not. Look, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying just like don't give a shit about other human lives. Right, that's obviously not the message here. But I'm saying at a certain point there has to be a cut off. There's just there's only so much one person can deal with. Their own problems plus the problems of others. There's a limit, bro. Yo, you gone on tea, bro? But we're gonna end it in a minute anyway. It's been like 2 hours.
No, son. Yeah, I followed you anyway, so maybe if you're online next time or whatever, I can jump on and have a discussion if you got another question. But no, it's good chatting.
No, I appreciate you, bro. It was a very interesting conversation, bro. Big up to you, Tina.
No worries, man. Next time.
Nice to meet you, bro. Hey, like smile, bro. like yeah, but breathe in through your mouth, right, and then breathe out through your nose twice, or do it the opposite way. Sorry, breathe in through your nose twice, and breathe out twice. And hopefully that resets your or whatever that system is. So it's not such a somber mood, right? But good luck to you, my friend.
Yeah, you too, man. See you next time, yeah.
All right, take care.
Maybe.
Alright, I was meant to restart the live after I put on Tekken, but that conversation was interesting. We went from Spinoza to, you know, questions about what suffering is and transforming suffering. So like that was a massive conversation. There's lots of stuff to think about. So what I will do is call this part 1 of streaming today maybe and come back in the evening, although it's late. But yes, thank you for everyone that has tuned in. Hopefully you enjoyed that conversation. Alright. So I'll be back in a bit maybe. I can't promise that, but yeah, let's take a break. It's kind of deep. It's kind of heavy. Let's reset.